Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me on Turning a Moment into a Movement. I'm your host, J Love, and I also represent the Justice for Gerard movement. Thank you for joining us today. We come here, if this is your first time joining us, we just want you to know the reason why we're here is because of the experience I had with my son, Gerard, who was wrongfully convicted of a crime that he didn't do. Innocent, and he went to prison for that crime. And because of that experience and the journey that I went on with him and all the people that I met while on that journey, we created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement, where we come here every Friday at 6 p.m. to talk about wrongful convictions, really to educate our community about wrongful convictions, the reason why they happen, and what we can do to, support each other on this journey of wrongful convictions. We also speak about injustice. Our mission is to bring awareness to wrongful convictions of Gerard and all others who are wrongly convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, and medically frail in our community. To aspire, organize, and educate all communities about the need to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns of the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. So that's why we come here every Friday. And we also want to send a shout out to those who are watching on Facebook. We're also on YouTube. Hello, everyone on YouTube and Twitter. And if you are on Facebook or you're watching, or you might listen to us later on our other podcast platforms, go to YouTube and subscribe. We're trying to build our YouTube audience. So just go there and subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we go live. So thank you for joining us. It's a rainy day here in Michigan. So we're a little bit behind, but we're happy to be here. So today, our topic is who is policing the police. Interesting topic, I'm sure. Um, you guys want to know. I want to know as well. So before we get started, I'm going to bring on our panel members, and then we're going to get started with our conversation for tonight. It's going to be an interesting one. So, first of all, greetings, Trische.
Greetings. What's up, Detroit? What's up, Michigan? What's up, Ypsilanti? What's up, everybody, everywhere? I am so happy to be here tonight. Not happy about what we're talking about by any means at all. Actually, kind of quite discouraged a little bit. No, I won't say discouraged because you have to watch your words. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that a sense of frustration for the continuation of business as usual is how I feel right now. But nevertheless, always thankful to be in this space. Always thankful for you, Jay, for opening up this platform so that we can talk about the real hard issues. Now, y'all, I'm sorry I'm not on camera today. I'm having a bad hair week. Um, you know,
Not
let me go on and come on camera. But just happy to be here. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you, Trisha. Tell them what you do.
Oh Lord, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody. And you better try to say yourself because ain't nobody coming to save us. Okay.
I know, right?
But my name is Trische Duckworth. I am the executive director and founder of Survivor Speak. I am the lead consultant at Value Black Lives. I'm a part of this team of turning a moment into a movement. I am a sister of our leader, Jay. I'm your sister too. You might not know me, but I'm still your sister because really we are family. And if we start to treat each other like we're family, maybe this world could be a better place.
Amen. Amen. So next, Revertia is on her way. So until she gets here, we're gonna bring on Tony Mack.
Much love and respect, J Love, and my sister Shay. Shay, ain't nothing wrong with your hair, girl. You look just fine.
I told her I got on a hat.
Look here. It's all good. So yeah, look here. Well, first of all, J Love, I want to thank you. I want to thank my sister Trische. I have tremendous respect for both of you beautiful, strong Black women. I've seen Trische stand on the front line in front of police, angry crowds, everything. And this sister has not faded. You hear me? She has not faded, you know. And I love her and I respect her. I love her. And J Love, I love and respect you. You know, I tell you every week, I know they want you to kick me off the show, and I appreciate you holding on with me this long. So, you know, much respect for you. But, you know, I'm so glad to be here. Hugo Mack is my name. And unlike the 40,000 other members of my profession in the state of Michigan, I'm not a lawyer that's in front of you that's parachuted down from heaven, okay? The way some of members of my profession feel they are. I'm a person who came up from hell through the blood of God and Jesus Christ to be here with you today, okay? See, so I believe in fighting for the underdog, for the people that have been wrongfully convicted, overly convicted, people that have been institutionalized and criminalized because of mental health, people that have been criminalized because of poverty, people have been criminalized because of sexism, because of racism, and a problem in our Black community, first and foremost, classism. So I'm here to address and confront those things. I understand what it's like to pay a debt not owed, paid a debt in the penitentiary I did not owe. God knows, and God is my vindicator, but he has me here today. He has spared my life to be here today, another time in front of y'all. So we're here fighting, and we're all in this together, and I love you. And so that's where I am. And J Love?
Yes.
Here we go.
Ready?
Okay. If you find yourself.
Mr. and Mrs. America, all the ships at sea, Black, brown, goodwill people everywhere, silence, announcement. If you find yourself on Trumbull Boulevard, push, pull, tow, drag, beam up that hoopity to Mack Street. Mack Street. Park your car in my virtual underground garage and call the Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. And J Love, if they ask you if I endorse this announcement, you're damn straight I did. Now, J Love, in order for you and all the others to have an opportunity to record that information, please allow me while I and Roland Martin do the boogaloo. And this for Reverend Tia. Get it, Trische, get it. Almost done, y'all, right quick. Okay, so there we are. So now, J Love, I want you to know all the Mr. people at sea, all Black, brown, poor, and disenfranchised people. If you don't want to win, don't come in. And I want you to know this announcement is brought to you in love by Dr. Hugo J. Mack, Esquire, the one true king of Russia, Scotland, and Harlem. I love you.
Reverend Tia missed her part. Oh, wait. We'll get her later. Okay. So we also, and I didn't forget this part. Well, I kind of forgot it a little bit, but also Miss Diane is going to be here from Voice of Detroit. And we're going to be talking also about the conviction integrity units and the article that she wrote last week. That was a hot article, so we're gonna talk to her about that. But for today, we're gonna let you go ahead and take the mic, Trische.
Man, I don't even know where to start with this one. Okay, so as the title says, who is policing the police? And looks like nobody, uh, especially out there in Westland.
Mm.
On last week, we received some videos from a confidential informant of the chief of Westland violating citizens who were highly intoxicated. Um, I like to say tormenting them, taunting them, making them do and perform certain acts to say you want to go to jail or you want to go home. Um, it was horrific in my opinion to watch something like that, and it made me reflect and think about the culture of policing, and it gave us a bird's eye view into how we've gotten to this position that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
In that same area, and rest his soul, Mr. William Marshall was, I'd like to say, killed, murdered. Right? He swallowed crack, cocaine, and the individuals on site knew that. And instead of doing what the procedures and the policy stated, they taunted him, threw him in the cell, and he died. Another young black man in Westland was in his front yard. The police were called. Police came with that superiority complex that we often see, and the young man was tasered with a 2-month-old baby in his hand. So when we think about what just happened with these videos and the culture that has been set probably years before, 25 years ago, because I'm sure this culture didn't start 25 years ago, but we have an emergency going on, and not just in Westland. It's all over, and I'll let you take it from there, Jay. But the chief did step down from his position. He stated that it was not because of any public scrutiny, but that he felt it was time. Yeah, it's past time. Um, but there are so many other things going on in Westland there. There's so much corruption from the mayor on down. And so when you think about who's holding the police accountable, well, it depends on what area you're in. But if you're in an area like Westland, the city council
Mm-hmm.
and the mayor, they are the ones that are supposed to be keeping watch over the police department. But they have allowed this culture of corruption to move forward throughout Westland. And this is where we sit.
Right. So, when you have police commissions, and I was trying to get a police commissioner on here today, but he was busy. I'm going to get him on at another date. But aren't they supposed to keep them accountable as well, Attorney Matt? Isn't that what their job is to do?
Well, a compound question with no simple answer. You see, and that's how the law is. I mean, that's how they designed the law. For every avenue in, there's at least an avenue out, some kind of an exception. Now, you've got police commissioners, all right, in some jurisdictions, okay, that are directly over the police department. They are accountable to the mayor, let's say, okay, the mayor, police commissioners. But then you've got some of these, frankly, weak water police commissions, like in Detroit, all right, you see. So, I mean, you can run and be elected a police commissioner, I think by district or something like that there. I have never seen them have any authority to do anything, okay? So to me, the weak police commissioner system like in Detroit is really almost like an advisory board is what it is. And I want to say this also. Part of the problem is what Democrats look to for big strength in elections and campaigning. They're called unions. Mm-hmm. They're called unions, okay? So part of the problem is that with Democrats, ask who is marshaling the police. Democrats have got a one-size-fits-all attitude. all unions are good unions. That's a lie. That's not true.
Mhm.
That's not true at all. You see, there's no such thing as a police union that is working on behalf of the citizens. That's not true. That's not true. Unions exist to improve the lot of their members, period. Period.
Exactly.
I don't care if that's a meat packers union. I don't care if it's a pipe layers union. I don't care if it's a postal union. And anytime you have, like, for example, Supreme Court in 1967 with Miranda versus Arizona, that is antithetical to a union in a police position, because that puts more burden on their members, more legal responsibility on their members, more liability on their members, more threat to job security on their members for not following the law.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the of commissioners, New York perhaps has got a good commissioner system. Detroit does not. So let's say we're dealing with a system with a weak police commissioner system. Well, then my sister Trische is right. That comes down to the city council legislatively, but ultimately the mayor. Okay, because in some charters, the mayor picks the police commissioner, but they've got to be approved and ratified by city council. And in some charters, the mayor has got control over who the commissioner is. Mm-hmm. So, you know, my sister was right. It depends on that jurisdiction, because one thing we know is we have the vote. That's one thing we know. All right. The vote to elect that mayor, the vote to elect those city council members, and the vote to elect those commissioners. So the ultimate concern of it is to answer who's going to watch the police. It has to be us. It has to be us, because they're not going to watch themselves. And by the way, let me say this to all the good police officers out there. Okay. And there's the vast majority of them, I think, do not have hatred in their heart, but they have a benign neglect in their heart, a benign neglect. Okay. A benign neglect that says, look, I'm not going to rock the boat. Yeah, Officer Smith, I mean, I thought he was a bit rough, but, you know, I'm not going to rock the boat. We're all going to review these police reports. And by the way, I don't mean to be long-winded, but before any police report is filed where I can look at it, that is vetted by the police department before it's even released. Those police, when I found this out in my candidacy for prosecutor in 2020, those reports go to a sergeant first for review and sanitizing, okay, and then correction before it is released. So the original police report that's written, we never see it. We see the edited version, folks. But again, that's your union. That's your union right there that does that. So anyway, Jay, I won't keep talking, but that's part of the problem right there.
So you said that unions protect their members.
Correct.
Which is why unions are here, right? To protect their members. Who protects the people?
Right.
Who protects the people? If the unions is in business that's why they pay union dues, to, you know, have the union stand up for them, protect them, and, you know, make sure that, you know, they don't lose their jobs when they do crazy stuff. Then what about the people? Because Trische, I saw your post on Survivor Speak and on Facebook, and people were saying, oh, well, that was 25 years ago, you know, and I just was like, okay, people don't understand. Yeah, it was 25 years ago, but those people might have been still living with that trauma for 25 years ago.
Thank you. And not to cut you off, Jay, but yeah, it was 25 years ago, but there was no accountability for it. And what it did was it set the tone for the current behavior that we see, right? Because if misconduct goes unchecked, it's exacerbated. So you'll continue to see it grow and grow and grow. And that is what has happened under this police chief's watch, right? Is that you see so much just corruption and misconduct. And then they now this the mayor now, put somebody in the seat now as the interim that's just as bad or worse. As a matter of fact, this dude got a lawsuit of $700,000 against the city because he done cracked somebody's head open. Why is he in that? I mean, come on. Why would a mayor put somebody like that in the seat. So your question is, who's supposed to protect the people? Well, the mayor and city council are supposed to protect the people. Because why? Because the people are who put them in those seats. But what happens is that we're not actively participating in our roles as citizens, right? Because as citizens and doing our civic duty, we need to be on making sure that they do the right thing. Because clearly, if a mayor had that tape since February and he did nothing, and all of a sudden decides to speak about it after everything is all out, what does that mean? They cannot hold each other accountable because they're all doing the same thing. They're all operating under that racist, white supremacist, those tactics, right? And especially the mayor, right? Because we can pull that right up and show you that the mayor allegedly has a video out where he doing black jokes and saying the N-word and doing all this stuff.
I got that. Hold on.
Man, it's deep.
Yes.
You run really fast. Just somebody in the room just yell out Michelle Yeager.
Wow.
He said if you want to make somebody run fast, just tell them to shout out the word, I'm a chubby N-word. Then there was another video, was in that same set. I guess he was doing some comedy set or something. I don't know. Maybe a roasting. I don't know. But then he said something about, being black and crispy. And I mean, he just totally crossed the line. Now, let me tell you about this video. And this is what I'm saying about a culture that's been rocked to sleep. This video been out too. Moving Westland Forward is a page. They put that video out. Nobody said anything about it. But you got a bunch of black folks, and not all, because there are some people that are standing, but you got a bunch of black folks that have sued the conduct of these individuals. Because you know how we are. Oh, I want to rock the boat. I just want to try to get as much done for our people as I can by building relationships. But sometimes we build relationships so much that we forget about justice.
Yeah. Let's show another one of the videos. This one is sad.
I want to know where the women's movement at.
Mm-hmm.
Where the women's movement at? The women's movement so big on women's rights. I ain't hearing nobody say nothing about this. Ain't nobody saying nothing about this. Is a black woman. How is it that these men can be filming a woman who has revealed herself and continue to film? And if you notice, the video is suppressed in this. the voices are suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the individual that gave me the tape got it from the original informant.
Mm-hmm.
And this individual blocked out the voice and the face of an officer and claimed that they did that because this officer was long gone. And there's more to the story as to why they did it. In my opinion, like I said, we could care less, that this person is long gone. They still did this. They still violated these citizens, right? Some of them even doing things that what's the word I'm looking for, that could harm them while they're intoxicated. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 24 years ago and they still doing it now.
Right, exactly. Attorney Mack, I saw this comment. There are fraternity brothers that see no color in each other. Police.
Well, in large measure, that's true. We have a push over the last 50 some years for diversity in like the police departments and things like that. But let me tell you something, diversity is not enough. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity just means like you've got a pink egg, green eggs, blue eggs, yellow eggs, but they're all eggs. They're all eggs. So, it's not a matter of diversity in skin. It's a matter of diversity in thought. See, that's what real diversity is. And I'm gonna tell you right now, as a black man, going on 69 years of age, when I look back at the past, I would much rather have a diversity of thought with an all-white police force than a diversity in color with integrated black and whites when blacks adopt the same mantra in police culture, all right, as the majority culture. We saw it in Memphis, Tennessee. You understand? We saw it in Memphis, Tennessee. Every officer involved in brutalizing, killing that man, all this, were black. Everyone was black. I didn't see one white officer doing that to that man. Okay, so we got to get out of saying this is all just about race. If we had more black officers, it'd be better. I'm not convinced of that. I'm not convinced of that unless we get some officers in there that understand social justice and understand the history of policing and systemic racism in the country. Then keep the white guys in there. I'm sorry, keep the white guys in there. At least with them, we've got something we can say because of the way you were raised or because of the way society is. You fall into this mold. But with a black person, it's harder to say because we can't say, well, you're doing it because this person's black. And by the way, they could be doing it because they're black. You remember the movie Boys in the Hood? Remember that, Boys in the Hood? Mm-hmm. Remember that scene where that black police officer and he had a white counterpart. He had a white police officer. Remember when they stopped Cuba Gooding Jr. and maybe somebody else on the street? You remember how he treated them, how that black officer treated them? That was self-hate. That was self-hate. He looked at another black face, saw it, and hated it because he hated himself. So,
that's the key right there, brother. Not to cut you off, but is that it's a self-hatred. If you look at the Willie Lynch letter, it still is all a product of racism. Let's not sleep. Because if you want to take it all the way back to slavery, they pit us against each other in slavery, made us pick and choose against each other. Some of us felt it was better to assimilate so that it could ease the blow of racism. But you can't ease the blow of racism. And this is what I'm hoping that we can all understand. Even the gatekeepers, we assimilate and navigate through these systems thinking we can navigate through. You can't navigate through the murky waters of racism because you're going to one day drown. The only thing to do is stand up against it. But because we have not stood up against it, this is where we sit. And a lot of our elites, some of our middle class, because they don't have that same sense of urgency of those of us that's in the gutter, and things might be all right for them. To assimilate is better because assimilation serves well for the individual. Assimilation does not serve well for a community.
That's true. That's true.
And then when the system is, we talk about diversity, but when the system is corrupt, it doesn't matter the color. They're operating as they've been trained. They're operating as the system tells them to operate. So, hi, Revertia.
Well, hello there. I've had a lot of difficulty today, but I'm glad to be here
Great.
this evening with everybody, and such an important cause, like what you guys were talking about and sharing, the whole system. And I just believe that we're in a time where every stone has to come down, every narrative that has been spoken through the eons, all the truth is starting to come out. And we can either be a willing participant towards humanity, or we, in our silence, will be towards inhumanity. And it's up to us to make that decision. So, Jay, I'm glad to be here tonight, coming to you from the Choice Zone, G100, Oneness and Wisdom, Michigan Coalition for Human Rights, transforming love community. And no matter where I'm going, no matter what I'm doing, I'm always motivating, educating, and encouraging others to access the kingdom that's within them, bringing out the best of who you are. I'm so glad to be a part of such a great panel and great leaders, each and every one of you, and supporter of Survivor Speak, Silent Cry, of course, the Maxter. I call him the Maxter, and I know he did his spiel, and I missed it.
You missed your chance.
Yeah,
I know you're gonna have to let him do it again. He did it so good this time. He put a different spin on it this time. It was real good this time. I mean, it's good all the time, but he threw a different spin on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm so glad.
I want to put this comment on here, you guys. Racism is a direct result of self-hatred and eternal conflict of ones that perpetrate it.
Yeah. Yes.
Willie Lynch letter. They say it wasn't real, but the tactics of it look real to me.
No. And J Love, can I say this? First of all, hello, Reverend Tia. You know,
hello.
And I just want to give a little flashback for you. Okay, so there we are. That's
you know, we had to lighten the mood because this stuff is really, these conversations we have is so heavy, and so we have to take an opportunity to lighten the mood because we'll be getting off here like.
Yeah, you know, and J Love, I wanted to say this, and I wanted to say this for all people, but particularly for our Caucasian brothers and sisters who may be listening right now. This is a problem. The face of it, you may look at the face of it as a Black issue, the face of it, but it is a human rights, human dignity issue. Okay, exactly. Just like in Nazi Germany, people made the mistake of thinking it was a Jewish issue. It was just about the Jews or the Romanians, you know, what people derogatorily call gypsies, okay? You know, or else the mentally ill, the physically ill, the mentally challenged as their issue. So I guess what I'm saying is to all people, but particularly to my white brothers and sisters looking at this affects you too. It's no escaping it. So, and I guess I tell people all the time, when you look, for example, people that are wrongfully convicted, you might say, well, it's not my family. Overly convicted, it's not my family. Suffering from mental illness, it ain't my family. You know, suffering from poverty, ain't my family. Well, yes, it is. Because you know what? All communities have streets that connect them, all right? And I'm saying you're not going to live on an island, all right? You can't live on an island. You can't survive by yourself. And so even though you think the problem is with the mud people, and you know, and you're there, you're mistaken. That whole system that perpetuates the downfall and degradation of quote unquote the mud people is the same one that will get you. Don't take my word for it. Ask Martha Stewart. Don't take my word for it. Ask Bernie Madoff. Don't take my word for it. Hopefully, ask Donald Trump. And so what I'm saying to you is that understand that we are in this thing together, and you can't stand on the sidelines, my white brothers and sisters, because it's coming for you too.
What's the actor name? Ask him too. The one who has shot the lady who got killed on the movie. Where they were shooting the movie and the gun went off and it went to
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. Ask Alec Baldwin.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It affects us all.
That's right.
So I wanted to bring this up right here because we, Trische and Rabatia, we talk about this every month during the task force meeting. But this right here is part of the problem. Qualified immunity.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
So defense protects police and other government officials from civil litigation in certain circumstances, permitting lawsuits only when an individual clearly established a statutory or constitutional right has been violated. So it's very, I guess if you split somebody's head wide open, you might, but I don't know, because with this new Supreme Court, they have changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's for everyone. That's for everyone.
Head open, you get a promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You split somebody's head open, you cause the citizens of Westland $700,000. You get a promotion.
Yeah.
Now, let me let you in on this. The way that they have crafted their inside, I mean, it's the sickest thing that I've heard. I don't know this to be true. This is alleged. But the way that they have crafted their structure is that promotions have to come from within.
Mm-hmm.
Or else, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, guess what? The chief, just this one I say, everybody like, oh, Trische, don't clap for me.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, don't clap for me, no way, because this is the work of God,
Yeah.
flat out. But outside of that, this ain't no win, because he stepped down and he gave his buddies a raise. That's what he did. That's why he like, oh, this didn't have anything to do with the pressure. I'm tired. It's 25 years. I'm tired of abusing the citizens of Westland. So let me step down and give my buddies a raise. And then you got a mayor again who could care less about appointing somebody that backs somebody's head open to the tune of $700,000 because he doing stand-up comedy calling folks the N-word. It's corruption, and I wish that she would come on, but she don't want to be bothered at all. This corruption, Tasha Green.
I was going to say Tasha Green, yes.
Tasha Green was a city council person there in Westland, and she sounded the alarm about all of this corruption that we are witnessing right now, but nobody will listen. And guess what they did? They went and gathered all the Black folks who could co-sign with them to silence her and to talk her out of saying anything when they knew that the things that she was saying was true. Now go figure that. Silenced her to the point of, and you know what's sad? That Mayor Wild knew he was stepping down. He didn't even need to run. But he ran because he wanted to keep, that's how that system and that machine is. It always wants control. But we got to serve the machine. Notice that we got control because if they don't do what's right, we won't keep giving them those seats. They've got to fear us. That's why we got to step up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we got to step up. And how do they silence them, Trische? Because, you know, we got to know what are the silencing tools.
Tactics.
the tactics, and some of us, sad to say, have been high class prostitutes. And I'm not afraid to say that, even in, with our leadership, oftentimes we are either mercenaries or prostitutes or whatever it is. We are economically gaining at somebody else's demise. And if we don't realize that as a people, if you are economically gaining where somebody else is not, and it's at somebody else's expense, you are part of the problem. You're part of it. And if silencing means money, and you're easily sold, you are called the sold out ones, not the called out ones, but the sold out ones. And you need to realize that, if you're a sellout, that's a sellout. That's a sellout. And then when people say, well, I did it for the money, and that's supposed to be okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. And when we get to the point where families decide, because I know with my grandmother, somebody else was, if somebody else came to their demise because of you in the family and you got paid for it, you couldn't eat at her table. She wasn't going to feed you, and she feeds everybody, but she's not going to feed you when you act like that. We got to call out the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them look like us.
Yeah. Reverend T, I was just having a moment to myself. I'm like, it's so funny these videos came out during Mercury retrograde. I had that little laughter to myself. They're 25 years old. Isn't that funny? And it came during Mercury retrograde. So that's just, me
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. The fake relationships of justice. Yes, Trische. Quit faking like you really got a relationship.
So, Attorney Mack, and also, because we might as well talk about them all this week, that came up this week. We talked about this chief in Westland. Kim Potter was released this week after serving, 16 months?
That's right.
And she's the lady who was killed Daunte Wright. Taser, but she had her gun in her hand, killed him. And only got 16 months. And that's before and after Kim.
And she should be afraid. She should be afraid for her life.
Yeah. She look in this picture. Then this guy right here, Miles, this the gentleman who killed Brianna. They know that his bullet was the bullet that killed Brianna Taylor. And then he just received a job at the sheriff's office or something.
And
then another jurisdiction, but he's back working. So when we ask who's policing the police, it needs to be us, because nobody else is.
Yeah, they're getting away with crimes. They're getting away with all kinds of crimes. They don't. They get promoted. They keep their pensions. They don't miss their families. And yet we have people who are serving time who are wrongfully convicted. People serving time in the crime does not fit the punishment. That's why the immunity is, and it just is mind-boggling how people can do such acts and feel that it's okay to move on with their life. And that family has been devastated forever.
Right. Exactly.
J Love, if I can say, Reverend T, were you done? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. See, I wanted to say this about that slide you just put on with those individuals. First of all, Kim Potter. Okay. I never ever want to be unmindful of compassion. Okay. But what I can't stand for is a one-way compassion. Okay. Because what I'm saying is that I believe that this lady is remorseful about what happened. I mean, but that's not the issue. The issue is when you have a uniform on, when we give you a gun, you know, you ain't even got to buy the gun. We'll buy the gun for you and give you a gun. Okay. You know, and when you discharge a weapon like that and say, well, it was a mistake, and people can flock to that, you have to ask yourself the question, if that was the reverse, if there was a citizen who accidentally shot and killed a police officer, first of all, I do believe it wouldn't be a trial because I believe that person would have been killed.
Yes.
All right. That person would have been killed. And so let me call out my Black and white brothers and sisters who consider themselves to be law and order. Okay. Okay. First of all, the greatest law and the order that must be upheld in this country is called the Constitution. So if you're telling me you're for law and order, prove it to me by supporting the Constitution. Okay. Prove it to me by that. The supporting law and order by giving a stamp to whatever any police officer does anywhere in the country as law and order is wrong. That's not law and order. There's a name for that. It's called fascism. Okay, it's a name for that. It's called fascism. So when I look at Miss Potter, and when I look at the thousands of clients I have represented that have, and some of them end up going to the penitentiary, I'm telling you, in a similar situation with a discharge of a firearm and somebody being killed, you would never see a 2-year maximum prison sentence. You wouldn't see it. Okay. Or I don't know if 2 years was the minimum or what. I don't know if they got a good time there, but you wouldn't see a person getting out of prison after 16 months when the life of a police officer has been taken under no circumstance. Under no circumstance. Yeah. And in terms of when this officer who killed Brianna Taylor, yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It may not have been proven in a court of law, but he killed that woman. And what I'm saying is, they said, well, Attorney Mack talking about, well, he got fired. So what? So what? Right. You know, so he's able to go to another police department and be fully hired. There's no stigma that goes with him there. And I'm just saying, once again, had that been the reverse, there is no way that I would have been able to just reintegrate back into another community. Okay. I would not have been able to do it. So, and the thing of it is, and I think we have to stop being afraid. And I guess I'm talking to primarily my Caucasian brothers and sisters. We have to stop being afraid to talk about privilege. We have to quit trying to pretend that privilege does not exist. And which is not to say that all white folks are basking in privilege. I'm not saying that. Some white folks been done dang near as bad as blacks. You know what I'm saying? By the same system. By that same system, all right, that will kill them too. Okay. So what I'm saying is that J Love, one reason I love this program and I love my co-workers and my colleagues here is that we're not afraid to call it out. None of y'all in here is afraid to call it out. And so with Miss Potter, I never met her. I'm sure she's remorseful, but she's a product of privilege. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. The officer that shot Brianna Taylor and killed her, he's a product of privilege. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And whoever that chief in Westland is, you know, no repercussions, and probably a hefty pension too, I might add. You know, a lot of money, which Westland will be paying him forever, I might add. Okay, no repercussions. Those are products of privilege and a system that is systematically designed to keep a group of poor, disadvantaged, colored, poor whites people in place. And that's exactly what you see happening time and time again. That sends a message. When Kim Powell was released after 16 months, taking somebody's life, that sends a message all over the country, y'all. A message.
You know, we worry about, you know, people, everyday citizens, but we're not worried about these killer cops that's out here, that's walking around, that's killing people, that's popping up in different jurisdictions. Just they're not losing their license. They're just going and go serve somewhere else. We need to be thinking of that's how we hold them. First of all, we have to get back to voting, get back into, educating ourselves about who's running. Not just what they say during the campaign, but really go back and look them up and see what their history is. They become all brand new when it's election time, but then they might have created the crime bill. I mean, oops, I'm just saying. We have to really, this is how we hold them accountable.
Yeah. You said something, Jay, about qualified immunity and absolute immunity, meaning that they can be criminally held responsible, right? And unless that happens, I don't know much else that could change this. Unless they're held responsible for killing us. See, like, I mean, come on, you think about it. 700,000. The Marshall family, I believe, is 3.4 million, if I'm not mistaken, or I could be wrong on those numbers. But all that money for 2 Black men, that says to me they don't mind about dropping some millions to kill one of us. They don't care. Because it ain't their money, no way. It's yours, Westland. It's your citizens of Westland. That's your money that they used to pay out these lawsuits because of their misconduct. And it's supposed to be us that holds them accountable. And here's the thing. That's legislation. Qualified immunity, absolute immunity. That's legislation. That's statewide legislation that really we don't even have to wait for our legislators to enact. We could write that bill up the way that we need it, get out there, get some petitions going, get some signatures, get it on the doggone ballot,
and vote it
and vote it in ourselves. Yeah. And now, in the voice of Valerie Kelly Bonner, she said all the time, now you voted for the weed, now vote for the need. You voted for the weed, now vote for what we need. And we need to abolish qualified and absolute immunity.
That's right.
And if you want to do that, you can meet us on May the 20th around that 1 o'clock hour. 1 p.m. we're coming together. And this time what we're going to do, and I haven't asked him yet, so I'm publicly asking him, and so hopefully he won't turn me down, but we would love for Attorney Hugo Mack to come in and break that bill down for us that's on the floor right now. We are going to look at that bill and see if it's what we need. And if it's not what we need, then we're going to put together what we need and we're going to work hard to get that on the floor or get it onto the ballot ourselves. That's got to be a statewide effort. All hands on deck. No big eyes, little U's. No, oh, I don't want to work with you. No, everybody needs to come together and qualify. I always talk about what's going on in Detroit with the police and the Brady violations and all of that. That's because there's qualified and absolute immunity. As long as we have that, we will never be able to hold these jokers accountable.
Right. That's why you got police officers that getting promotion with 85 complaints, hundreds of complaints, lawsuits, and all kinds of stuff still working because they have protection. But we have to protect us.
That's
it's
right.
Up to us. We waiting for somebody to come and save us.
Right.
Nobody is coming.
Right.
Hello. Trische, hold on. Oh, go ahead, Attorney Mack.
Oh no, I don't want to cut nobody off. Go ahead.
All right. I want Trische before we switch over to the next topic.
Yeah. So everybody was like, oh, well, the chief, resigned. Are we still gonna hold a rally? Yes, we are. Because the chief resigning did not stop the culture of the tactics that are being used in Westland as concerning police and the government there. So we will be over at City Hall over on Warren. And I'll post the exact address in the chat in a moment. But we will be over there Monday at 6 p.m. Come and raise your voice. We're going to have open mic night style. We'll have some speakers there, but then we're going to open up the mic for folks who would like to speak till 7 o'clock. Then we're going to go on the city council meeting, and we are going to have a public comment moment and allow these folks to know of our disdain for their behavior, including the mayor, who we will be demanding that he resign with his racist self. So please don't meet us there, beat us there. We'll be there at 6 o'clock. You come at 5:45, but we need all hands on deck because. And then people keep saying, you ain't from there. I'm so tired of that. We ain't from here. You ain't from here mess. I don't care. What did Dr. King say? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So wherever my people, which is all people, are in trouble at, you'll meet us there battling alongside them for freedom.
Amen.
Yes.
Yes.
Amen.
J Love, can I just segue back one moment on
Go ahead.
One of the things that Trische is so right about is defending on ourselves and not the legislature. Let me tell you what's happened with me this last week. I've got two legislative representatives. One, Jimmy Wilson, okay, my state representative, and Jeff Irwin, my senator. Okay, now for the edification of people who don't know, the Democrats, for the first time in 40, 50 years, control all branches of government. Right. They control the state house, they control the state senate, and they control the governorships. That's a trifecta, y'all. You got those three, you can move a mountain. Okay. So let me explain. And I know most people know this already, but there's like 110 representatives in the state of Michigan. All right. 56 of them are Democrats. 54 of them are Republicans. There are 38 state senators in the state of Michigan, okay? 20 of them are Democrats, 18 are Republicans. You see, those are razor thin majorities. Now, what I've been pressing my state representatives on is a particular issue that is very important to me as an attorney, and that is the right of returning citizens to be able to sit on a jury. Right. In the state of Michigan, a returning citizen can never sit on a jury. So the relationship that I brought to my representative's attention is that as a licensed attorney, sanctioned by the Michigan Supreme Court to represent 10 million people of good character and standing, because I have a criminal justice involvement, I can pick a jury, but the state of Michigan says I'm not qualified to sit on a jury. You understand? So one of the things that has been very concerning to me is, why is it you say a person has got a right to vote, they do in the state of Michigan, coming back from a criminal justice experience, but they're not worthy to sit on a jury? I don't get that. I don't understand that, because what you're telling those folks, I'm one of those folks, is that it doesn't matter. I could have 5 Nobel laureates. It doesn't matter. I could give you a cure for cancer. It doesn't matter. I am a pariah and unworthy to sit on a jury, where the qualifications for jurors are nowhere near as the qualifications to be an attorney, but I'm still unworthy. So if I'm unworthy, think about the people coming out of the penitentiary that didn't have the advantage I have with education and background. Think about that man or woman coming out of the penitentiary that maybe just barely got a GED. Okay, what are you telling them? What you're doing is you're creating a glide path for that person back to recidivism. That's exactly what you're doing, because you're shutting the doors of humanity to that person. Okay, So in any event, so I agree with Trische, and I encourage everybody, keep pressure on these Democrats that are in there now to do the right thing. They say they've done a lot in 100 days. Yeah, true, but not enough. They can pass legislation right now about qualified immunity. They can pass legislation right now restoring good time, disciplinary credits. They can pass legislation right now, restoring criminal justice experienced people's right to vote. So keep pressure on them. And if they don't do what we need, then let there be a change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Greetings, Diane.
Hi, how are you doing, Jay and all? This is
Hello.
Diane.
Welcome. How are
Yes,
you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing awesome.
Okay, great.
So we go just head on in, hit it in the head. That article, that article last week, I was like, wow. And I wanted you to come on here because there are so many people just, that we deal with all the time. I'm sure Trische and Attorney Mack and Revertia that are fighting wrongful convictions and are desiring for the CIUs to take on their cases. They're, hoping and praying that they call them. So when I read and it made sense. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about it.
Okay. Well, the Voice of Detroit has been covering wrongful conviction cases for quite a while. And what we've noticed regarding the CIU in Wayne County, and it's not only the CIU here, the article is about CIUs everywhere, cautioning people about the dangers. Well, there's risks and dangers of dealing with them. But I've noticed in Wayne County that we've had people waiting for evaluation from the CIU for over 5 years. There's one prisoner whose case I'm investigating now named Willie Merriweather, who's been in prison over 30 years. And he's had his case in front of the CIU for 5 years. And they keep telling him they'll get to it eventually. He's got a real strong contention that one of the people involved in his case, the chief investigating officer, Donald Stowitz, I think you say it, has been involved in other wrongful convictions. So that's a Brady issue. And we had a story that we published on Roosevelt Pettiford, who was another situation where the Michigan Supreme Court had granted him a hearing. The Michigan Supreme Court had overturned his conviction for first-degree murder, basically, and sent it back to the trial court for an evidentiary hearing. The CIU attempted to intervene. The Wayne County CIU attempted to intervene with the Supreme Court and asked them to hold off on their ruling, and they said they would not do that. But afterward, so they issued the ruling, and after that, then the CIU got in on it anyway because the attorney and defendant in some way gave their permission. But the Michigan Supreme Court decision came down in 2020. It's now 2023. And his case is still under review. There's been no resolution on it. They just texted me this week or emailed me this week from the prosecutor's office to say that they're still investigating. Now, this is almost 3 years later. The man could have had an evidentiary hearing, which many prisoners really desire. That's a big accomplishment when you get an evidentiary hearing on a conviction overturn. And he could have had that if that agreement hadn't been made with the CIU. Mm-hmm. Now, the CIU in Wayne County, on the article that I published, I included a little bit about the Wayne County CIU. And one thing that brought this to my attention was a recent case that I'm investigating now. I'm not going to talk in general about that, not going to talk specifically about that case because we're still awaiting determinations on it. And we actually had a victory on it in terms of making the court back off on allowing the CIU to investigate. So, and restoring the man's right to have his hearing, the request to the order to the prosecution to respond in 56 days and all of that. So, but anyway, during the process of investigating that, this is the request for stay on court proceedings that I found in the case after we had gone and reviewed his file. And this is a request for stay from Valerie Newman. It says, request for stay. The people of the state of Michigan, by Valerie Newman, director of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Conviction Integrity Unit, ask that the above matter be stayed and the due date for the people's answer to defendant's successive motion for relief from judgment held in abeyance, so that the CIU may investigate evidence pertaining to the defendant's claim of actual innocence. If the case is not resolved between the parties, the CIU will notify both the court and the appellate division of the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, at which time the parties agree the people's 56-day period within they must file a response will begin to run. Now, this stay was the order was drafted and entered in the court without any consent from the defendant or his attorney. One second here. Without any consent from the defendant or his attorney. And when we found the orders in his file, when we finally had a chance to go down to I keep calling it recorder's court, to the Frank Murphy Hall, to the clerk's office, and review the file, since they've opened up their offices now. That's, we went to town about that, because it seems in this case, the gentleman has been in prison almost 50 years. And he's been fighting his case all that time. There's been a new motion filed on his behalf. And he has an attorney now, was originally filed pro se. And we were anxiously awaiting a hearing. And we didn't know what was going on, because it seemed like it just kept getting adjourned and adjourned. We thought it was the judge's caseload. However, that turned out not to be the case. The order staying it has now been overturned, and the judge has agreed to continue with the hearing after the prosecutor responds within 56 days. Now, this man's been in prison almost 50 years, fighting his conviction. His mother was anxiously awaiting his hearing. His mother died earlier this year. This order was stayed. This order was stayed in October last year. And we just now discovered that. If his mother would likely have been alive for his hearing if it hadn't been stayed. And that's what people got to realize. They're not only hurting the prisoners, they're hurting their family members when they do things like this. I did ask whether this is standard procedure. One second here. Okay, whether this is standard procedure with the prosecutor's office, and they kind of gave me a non-committal response. So anyway, but that's just one instance of how the dangers of dealing with the CIU without understanding what they actually do. For one thing, the CIU attorneys, Valerie Newman, etc., they are not defense attorneys. Valerie Newman and the other staff on the CIU work for the prosecutor. They work under her direction. Any resolution that they come to on a case cannot be put forward until Kentworthy approves it. And people have the impression that the CIU is independent. That's not the case. By the fact that the CIU attorneys are still prosecutors, working with them carries great risks for incarcerated people, especially those without lawyers. That's not to say that the CIU doesn't resolve cases and has worked with people that have been exonerated here in Wayne County. But that's to say that the CIU has 1,700 cases still pending. And many of them have been pending for a long time. So...
And they're not going in order as they get them. They just pulling them as they see, as they want.
Yeah, there's a lot of politics involved in the whole situation. And in particular in Wayne County, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office is very reluctant to involve any of their previous prosecutors, assistant prosecutors, to go after them. I make a point in my stories of identifying the assistant prosecutors in the case and, looking at what they did wrong along with the police. So, and for that reason, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office is not real open to overturning what their assistant prosecutors have done before. Now in Southfield, in Oakland County, the Oakland County prosecutor, Karen McDonald, agreed to do that in one of the cases. She appointed a special prosecutor to investigate that case and to investigate what had gone wrong. And she admitted she apologized to the defendant and his family for the fact that he had been so unjustly, he was framed up, and it's clear in the records that she discovered. So, and he'd been in prison a long time for a fire that they said he set that killed 5 children in Oakland County. And he was not the perpetrator. He was never the perpetrator. So he's out now. But that's not the practice in Wayne County. And, it's not only the police that engineer these wrongful convictions, the prosecutors have a whole lot to do with it. And what this article that I found from the Criminal Legal News, I was investigating what was going on with the current case that I'm dealing with. And I found this article. I was so happy to find it because it really lays it out, the things you really need to be aware of if you're contacting a criminal, a conviction integrity unit, any conviction integrity unit. It's from the Criminal Legal News. Now that's a very reputable publication. The authors are lawyers and professors of law at, the Quattrone Center for the Fair Administration of Justice at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, and also the Innocence Project, originally from New Orleans. So they're experienced in this matter. And they shed light to me, really, on a lot of the issues why I've been running into so many cases here that are having problems with the CIU in Wayne County. So what they're saying, if you read the article, it's online at Voice of Detroit, at http voiceofdetroit.net. What you need to know before contacting a conviction integrity unit, the Criminal Legal News. What they're saying here, while working with the CIU can provide hope, there are risks. Attorneys in CIUs are not defense attorneys. They're still prosecutors. Nothing you say in person or in writing to a CIU lawyer is confidential. The CIU could uncover information that opens the applicant or their friends and family members up for prosecution for new crimes or jeopardizes the applicant's options for parole and probation. It can be, because this is the prosecutor's office, and they say it in their notice of where they explain on the website for the prosecutor what their role is and what they do. They make it clear that we're not here to investigate issues of constitutional violations, such as Brady issues. They're here to find out the so-called facts of the case and and determine whether the person is innocent. Now, that's not as simple as it sounds, because you can be innocent even if other factors appear that had you involved some kind of way in that case. And the CIU does not deal with those situations, but you can be innocent of the crime for which you were charged, and you deserve, to be considered for that and to be exonerated if that's in fact what happened in your case. So let me see. This is part of the Wayne County CIU's website. Is the CIU part of the appellate post-conviction process provided by Michigan law? No. There are important differences between a review by CIU and any appellate filings. CIU was not created by statute. Its investigations are not part of a court action, and it is not governed by court rules of procedure. CIU does not focus on determining whether important constitutional rights were violated. It focuses on determining whether whether an innocent person has been wrongfully convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's something the CIU here frequently does not say, that they are exonerating the people that that they call exonerees now in the general public. They're known as exonerees, but many of them were not really exonerated. They had the convictions the CIU decided will say in their press releases that this person is not being exonerated, but that we agreed to overturn his conviction for other reasons, such as the unfair trial, etc. But the CIU, of course, is not the one that overturns the conviction. It's a judge. The CIU's practice is to go to certain judges and get them to agree beforehand that that the judge will agree to overturn the conviction and let the person go. And only one situation I've seen where those overturns of convictions have been done with prejudice. Almost all of them are without prejudice, which means that the charges can be brought back at any time the prosecutor wants to. Okay, so people got to toe the line a little bit once you're exonerated under the Wayne County CIU. And I'm not saying that to comment on any of the exonerees, because many of them that came out were horribly incarcerated for, dozens of years that they never should have been incarcerated for. They were the victims of extreme injustice. But the situation with Wayne County, well, let's just say the situation with prisoners in the state of Michigan. Now, Scott Lewis, who's runs that private investigation agency now, he used to be on Channel 2 as a reporter, has told me that he believes at least 30% of people in prison in Michigan are innocent. And he told me that especially during the period when they had the ring of snitches in the 90s, where they were recruiting jailhouse snitches, this involved not only the police, this involved the prosecutors in the cases, that those jailhouse snitches were recruited by both the police and the prosecutors. In fact, one case that I'm recently studying, doing a story on right now, I discovered that the prosecutor in this case was actually the prosecutor that was in charge at the resentencing hearing for Joe Twilley, who was one of the notorious jailhouse snitches. And he was resentenced to they dropped quite a few years from what he was facing. And he was resentenced with the knowledge and the actual input of the prosecutor in this case. So I've discovered that happened here. This case that I'm investigating now, which there'll be a story out shortly on Nicholas Hudson. But in his case, he was basically framed up because he testified in 1999. There was a long-ranging investigation by the Department of Justice of Detroit police officers who were robbing drug dealers, taking the drugs from them and redistributing them on the street and making money off of it. There was a 3-year investigation. There were dozens of people, dozens of officers that were indicted by the Federal Bureau of Justice. And one of those officers, the Department of Justice recruited him to testify against the officer. Now, they didn't recruit him. They ordered him to testify, which he did. And then in the middle of all that, they came up with a murder that had happened in his community, and they pinned it on him. Now, the attorney that I'm dealing with right now, he has an excellent attorney who has really laid it all out in her brief about the witness tampering, the coercion that the police put forward on this man, including threatening his girlfriend with having her children taken, many other coercive actions. Now, that's a common practice, I'm finding out, of prosecutors and police threatening people their kids are going to be taken if they don't testify the way they want, especially witnesses. And so anyway, but that story will be coming out probably this weekend. And you can read more then on Nicholas Hudson. If his family members are listening, I've been in touch with him and his family members and his attorney. And I think it's going to be a powerful story because of the investigation, for one thing, that his attorney did. And you don't always find an attorney that's as thorough as she is. Laurel Kelly Young out of Grand Rapids, I think she is. But she's done a great job on the brief. And in his case, she had been dealing with the CIU too, and who assured her that it would be okay if the CIU, she could file the motion, which she filed in December, and the CIU would go ahead. She could still have the CIU investigate. Well, we haven't found what order might have been put in there to stay the issue, to stay in a hearing, because he still is not scheduled for a hearing. Now, the motion was filed in December. So that's one danger of a CIU, particularly in this case. I think it may be really, Wayne County may stand out in the way that they handle this kind of thing. Because to me, the language in their motion for a stay that they're asking to be able to investigate the issue of innocence, this is not something for the CIU and the prosecutor to investigate. That's something for the courts and the proper procedures under state law to investigate. There's many different definitions in state law of what innocence constitutes. 1 second here. My computer is popping stuff up. But so in his case, the attorney did agree to ask the court clerk to, told the court clerk she wasn't giving her permission anymore for the stay, and also the defendant. So that should speed his hearing up a little. He's been in prison a long time too, a couple dozen years. And it was all that period of the 1990s. Now, Scott Lewis told me during that period of the 1990s in particular, that he feels from the cases he's investigated that probably at least 80% of people from Wayne County, of defendants from Wayne County, are actually innocent, or innocent, in some form or another, but that they're innocent, that they should never have been charged in the first place. Now, there's another case that I've been studying and publishing articles on, Carl Hubbard, who's been in prison for, the figures don't immediately come to my mind, but he's been in prison for a couple of decades as well. And he was, it was a blatant frame-up, one of the most blatant cases I've seen, where they recruited a friend. Well, it was an acquaintance of his to testify against him at trial. That acquaintance went on the stand and recanted his identification of him. All he did was say that he was in the vicinity. And that was the whole case that they had against Carl Hubbard. And he went on the stand during the trial and recanted. When he recanted, the prosecutor and the police, the prosecutor asked for him. Well, to be honest, I don't know who. Anyway, the judge enforced his arrest. He was arrested by the police for claiming he committed perjury, and harassed and threatened for 2 days. He was jailed and threatened for 2 or 3 days up in the Wayne County jail by the prosecutors with being charged with the murder himself and other things like that. But it was just blatant. This happened. I mean, the trial judge allowed that to happen in front of him. That's something that you cannot do, at least under the Constitution. This is something you cannot arrest a witness when he recants on the stand, but that's what they did. And that was one of the prosecutors in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office that he's no longer on staff there, but he was really high up in the office at the time. So that whole thing is just, now, I don't know, did somebody else want to have something to say here? Because we can go through what the article talks about.
It's so much. First, I want to go back because Kevin, he asked a couple of questions, and I was shaking my head, Kevin. Who is, let me go back to it. When you first got started, he asked, who oversees the CIU? The prosecutor office.
Okay. Yes, the answer to that question is the prosecutor. Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy oversees the CIU. The CIU will tell you on their website that they give the information to the appellate division, to other prosecutors in the office. One of the things that this article says is that any information given to these CIU attorneys can be used to drum up other charges against either the individual that's a defendant or his family and friends, people that testified in his case, that they'll ask the person for their permission to have their lawyer reveal his files, which are subject to attorney-client privilege, and they'll ask for permission to do that. They also subject people to lie detector tests and don't take their cases if they don't pass a lie detector test. Now, lie detector tests are not admissible in court, as most people know, and there's all sorts of problems with them being accurate. So, but for that, if they act as prosecutors, basically, because for a prosecutor to demand that a person that's applied to the conviction integrity unit take a lie detector test, in this case, Roosevelt Pettiford took 3. He took 2, including one from a lie detector expert or whatever, the polygraph examiner. A polygraph examiner who's been implicated recently in Oakland County, James Hoppy, with revealing information from the polygraph to the police department involved in the case. And that laid the whole basis for them to search the defendant's house. That was the whole basis, because he illegally did that. A polygraph examiner is only supposed to deal with the defense attorneys, and he's not supposed to be revealing anything. And that's who they used the first couple of times. The third time, they used a polygraph exam. The defendant and his attorney got a different polygraph examiner, and he passed the same test using the same equipment. So, you know, I don't know what's happened to James Hoppy, but he should be taken out of the profession for that.
Exactly. So he also asked, where did they get their funding from the prosecutor's office?
Yeah, that's where they get the funding, from the prosecutor's office. And as you're aware, Kim Worthy frequently is screaming about she doesn't have enough prosecutors. She needs more funds. She's got some of the exonerees going around saying that they want to raise funds for her office. Kim Worthy is way overfunded in that prosecutor's office. Back in 2011, the crime lab was shut. Well, the crime lab was shut down in 2008. Maryland, the head of the crime lab task force, and all sorts of family members were, mobilized in 2011 to demand that their family members' cases be looked at and investigated because of the fact that so many of the crime lab results had been falsified. Now, the ultimate resolution of their protest, which they got quite a lot of coverage, if you put Crime Lab Task Force in the search engine on Voice of Detroit, you'll bring up the articles that I published back then. And they got a lot of publicity. They really had a good movement going. But in the end, they were trying to get the people to realize that what needs to be done with crime labs, they need to be, and there's federal agencies that have said this, they do not need to be associated with the police and the prosecutors. They need to be independent, as scientific entities. That was raised at the city council hearings on this. But despite all, and also the other thing that happened there was that Kim Worthy decided, now there was at least 1,000 cases where the evidence technicians were in question because of the revelations when the crime lab was shut down. Kim Worthy decided, and this is a matter of record, and it's described in the articles on Voice of Detroit, that she was only going to deal with cases between 2003 and 2008. Now, people are in prison due to crime lab technician falsification going back decades. That's another thing that's happening with the prosecutor's office and the city. They've decided that they're not going to look at anything that the city says now. The city corporation council has said that police officers' records more than 4 years old should not be revealed, that the police have a chance to reform themselves, and he feels they've done that. Well, I'm sorry. In many cases, you've got police. I'm investigating cases from as far back as 1975, and you had police officers back then that committed all sorts of horrendous, heinous acts in framing people up. And you mean to tell me you're not going to put them on the Brady list? In fact, they took off one person from the Brady list in the case that I'm dealing with now before the court, where they had tried to get a stay. They took off the police officer, James Harris, from the Brady list. James Harris was the chief instigator, the chief person in the police department that caused the conviction of this defendant. Now, James Harris was arrested and charged in 1971 with the Rochester Street Massacre. I don't know how many people remember that, but that goes back. That was a huge thing because it was during the anti-stress movement. And James Harris, who is Black, was a member of Stress, along with two other people from Stress, went in to an apartment where Wayne County deputy sheriffs were playing cards peacefully. Tracked down, they went in with their guns blazing. They killed one of the Wayne County deputy sheriffs, wounded others. One guy is disabled for the rest of his life. And I think from what I've seen on the case that one of the things they were doing was they were targeting a Wayne County sheriff who was an undercover investigator for the DEA of drug trafficking, of police involvement in drug trafficking. They didn't kill him, but they did kill one of the other Wayne County sheriffs. And there was a huge stink in the city at the time about that because, you know, the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's Union, everybody said that the shootout, they tried to claim, the Detroit police tried to claim that the sheriffs had fired at them first. But that was not the case from the evidence that came out. The evidence was that they fired first. And the only way the whole thing was stopped was when a Detroit police officer entered on the scene from, not from the Stress unit. These were 3 cops from Stress. And, you know, Black and white, both. But James Harris was Black. And they, the police officer that entered on the scene wasn't associated with them. He went up to the apartment and he recognized the sheriff, that a guy was about to shoot in the head, that the police officer was about to shoot in the head. And he pulled his gun on him and said, "Don't you dare. That's a Wayne County sheriff." So it was a huge, now James Harris didn't get convicted. Nobody got convicted on the side of the Detroit police. William Cahalan was the prosecutor back then. And the trial, I don't know exactly what happened during the trial, but it was clearly manipulated. But he was charged, and he was also reprimanded by the Detroit Police Board, the disciplinary board, which made him eligible to be on the Brady list. Later, after this case, he was arrested outside Miami in a yacht that the FBI had surreptitiously engaged to frame, it was a FBI sting. And they had him and Mayor Coleman Young's brother-in-law, I think James Bolson, in the yacht. And there's a video of it. It's on the website under Ricky Rimmer's story, where they asked them, what we want you to do is guard drugs when they're coming in from outside of the country into Miami and then coming up to Detroit. We want you to guard them and make sure that that the drug dealers are protected. And they agreed to do it for $50,000 during that video, during that sting. He got sentenced to 30 years in court. James Harris did. Now, all of a sudden, they've taken him off the list after this whole brouhaha erupted over Ricky Rimmer's case. And they said that they told me that they decided that that the case was too old, that police officers don't need to be on the list with cases that old. I'm sorry, this man's still in prison. He's been in prison nearly all his life, almost 50 years. He was 40 when he went to prison. He's now almost 60. No, more than 60. Sorry about that. But so how can you say you're going to take the police officers off the Brady list?
Right.
I campaigned to get them on the Brady list because I contacted the prosecutor's office about why the heck isn't he on the Brady list? And they eventually did put him on, but now they've taken him off. So nobody knows the Brady list in Wayne County is totally not accurate or dependable. There's plenty of cops that need to be on it. The way that Kim Worthy deals with that Brady list is she goes to the agencies, the police agencies, the law enforcement agencies to get recommendations for people to be on the list. Now, what law enforcement agency that you've heard of is going to name their own cops?
But she promised during her re-election that she was going to have this Brady list every 6 months or wherever. She promised that it was going to be coming out on that Brady list probably came out once. It was twice.
Out at the time of her election. Then later in December of that year, that's when they put James Harris on the list, I think it was the next year in 2021. And they had a new list then, but neither of those lists were, comprehensive or reflected the reality of dirty cops in Detroit.
Right.
And so anyway, it is what it is there.
There was another question by Adrian. She said the Innocent Project had my son's transcripts for 4 years, then said his case didn't qualify because there was no DNA. And this was an alleged rape case. Please help me understand.
Well, there is a case like that that's currently, this one is from Macomb County, but one of the stories that I have on the Voice of Detroit is about a defendant that was charged with rape in Macomb County. And it came back when the forensic evidence came, the forensic analysis of hairs that were found in the victim's bed came back. The defendant was ruled out because he was Black and the hairs were classified according to, these were hairs from a white man, was what the forensic evidence technician declared. But that he's been sitting in prison for, David Stinson is his name. He's been sitting in prison for almost 28 years now. His family's been campaigning to get him free. They're waiting for the Conviction Integrity Unit in the state, Dana Nessel's Conviction Integrity Unit, to do something about it. Nothing has happened so far. After all these years, nothing has happened. So in terms of conviction integrity units, you need to look at each one with a fine-tooth comb. Well, that's kind of a weird simile, but anyway, you need to really thoroughly investigate what they actually do before going to them and trusting them and feeling like they're going to do something. Now, I see Nicola Klima's, the CIU in Wayne County. They're threatening and scaring witnesses who have changed their statements, saying the police made them make a false statement. The CIU scared a witness so bad they went back to an original. Can people see this on the screen?
Yeah.
The comment from, so I don't have to read it. Yeah. Okay, exactly. Hi, Nicola, because we also did a story on her husband and his brother who were wrongfully convicted.
There was someone else who had also another question.
Jay, if I could,
Go ahead, Trische.
I wanted to.
Here it is.
What you said about the integrity unit doing the stays and kind of taking the cases from the court.
Yes.
Right? And this has happened in a couple different cases that we're currently working on where the court had a specific amount of time to answer.
Yes.
56 days, I believe, is the amount of time they had to answer. And then next thing you know,
here comes Valerie Newman.
They said that it was given. They said that it was given to the conviction integrity unit. And so then another case, they said it was given to the conviction integrity unit. So what you're stating is that no, when these cases come up, that the integrity unit actually says, hey, let me take that case. And then they stalemate it, basically, is what happened to this case. It's just sitting there because they say he can't jump the line, but he's had something in with the integrity unit since 2020. So he wouldn't be jumping the line. And not only that, the co-defendant on this case is out.
Mm-hmm.
The case got overturned at the Supreme Court, came back down to Wayne County, where tapes were produced that were not in the first trial, that showed that all the witnesses were lying because they said they circled the building 4 to 5 times. If they circled that building 4 to 5 times, all of us was in the car with them too then. That's how much of a lie that it was. That, now with these tapes, to me, that's a no-brainer, right? You let the person out.
Let me ask you,
still sitting there?
Did they have the permission of the defendant and or his attorney in that case to do that? They have to get permission.
Well, see, that's the thing.
We have to have, it's not just the prosecution and the judge that determines, as people know. Your defense and the defendant himself have to have some input into that.
The defendant, I know for certain, hasn't had much input into that. I do know that for certain. And so they kind of just came back and said, whoa, this is what's going on type thing, like as if decisions were made for them without them. And of course we know that happens all the time. But I don't know that to be sure. That's just alleged, because I don't know if there was a direct conversation about, hey, do you want to do this or do you want to go that way? But to my knowledge, that didn't happen.
It would be helpful if you can go down now and review his criminal file to see what orders are in there, because that's how we found the one on the case I'm investigating now. We went down to review the criminal file and it popped out of there. Basically, the order, the judge had originally given a very strong order saying that he's thoroughly reviewed the filings for a new trial, and for a new trial. It was filed under 770.1, which involves where justice has not been done, and that he thoroughly reviewed those files and felt that the prosecutor definitely needed to respond. And after he issued that order, 3 days later, Valerie Newman popped up. And we didn't find out about that until just a couple of weeks ago. Meantime, the defendant's mother died.
Oh my gosh.
So there's just no excuse. And to interfere with the court procedure, I don't know, there's attorneys here, if you can maybe talk about that, but to interfere with the court procedure, you have a right to due process.
I don't understand that. If a judge is supposed to make a ruling, why isn't the judge making the ruling?
Well, they did. The judge in this case gave the order for the stay. The CIU can't just take it without an order from the judge. But the judge is obligated to consult both sides in the matter. Isn't that the case, Attorney Mack?
Well, first of all, I want you to understand something, and I'm sure all of you already know this. You know, a lot of people try to get relief through a motion, you know, MCR 6.500. Okay.
Right, right.
So, but what I counsel people all the time is that you can you still hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah.
What I counsel people all the time is that judges have the authority not to ask the prosecutor to respond at all. All right. So in other words, just because you file a motion for relief from judgment does not mean that the prosecutor is going to respond. The court rules give so much authority to judges that the judge can decide I don't need to have the prosecutor respond to this because I think your case lacks merit. All right. And then the only recourse you have in a situation like that is to try to go to the Court of Appeals, which is a slow boat to nowhere, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
we know that.
Yeah. So what I tell people is, I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
Oh, can you explain about the difference between using 6.500 and the state statute 770.1 that allows you to proceed in a case where justice has not been done? That was instituted in to stop, you know, before when the whole 6.500 was instituted. But that has not overturned 770.1. Those are court rules. They don't overturn a statute.
Yeah, well, okay. Let me just be brutally blunt about this whole thing. All right. You know, in the state constitution, you've got the ability for a writ of quorum novus, habeas, all these sorts of writs that you can bring. And I'm saying in my years of experience, I've seen zero success with those. Now, in terms of this statute, you remember now, you know, statutes are subject to interpretation by the court and application. So a statute may well say you've got a right to bring a cause because a miscarriage of justice, let's say, has occurred. It doesn't mean it's going to get anywhere, though, because once again, the courts have got so much authority to like summarily dismiss those situations. And a lot of 6500s that I've tried to help people perfect, these circuit judges are given like a 2-paragraph denial, ridiculous, you know? So what I instruct people and I advise them, if you, and as bad as flawed as some of the CIUs are, and I'm not saying they're not, but excuse me, if you can get them in some modicum to cooperate with you, that's at least a foot in the door to legitimacy, okay? Because like I said, the judge can order the prosecutor to respond. Okay, you got 56 days to respond. Well, if the prosecutor doesn't respond, then the judge it's got different options. One, I told you to respond, prosecutor. You know, the courts have an ability known as contempt, all right? Contempt. And what I'm saying is a violation of a court order can be a grounds for contempt. I've never seen a judge brave enough to do that with a prosecutor, okay? So to be able to force a response or make a decision without a response. And it's like the person that stays silent, their silence is kind of used against them. I've never seen a prosecutor locally that has never responded when told to by the judge. Maybe you have in Wayne County. I haven't seen it.
You know, there's a hearing. There's a case that was litigated before the Michigan Supreme Court in 2015, and the name skips my mind right now. It'll probably come back to me. Mm-hmm. But in that case, the trial judge had ordered relief to the defendant based on 770.1. Okay. And it was denied at the appellate levels. But when it got to the Supreme Court asked attorneys and others to weigh in on the issues that were raised by the defendant, including under 770.1. They specifically asked for a defendant to come forward so they could rule on the issue of 770.1, whether that can override the 6.500 issues. Now, they didn't address that issue because they overturn the conviction based on another issue. There was about 5 different issues before the Michigan Supreme Court. But what we found, myself and the paralegal that works with the Voice of Detroit, Travis Herndon, found the brief that was filed in that case and it's a stunning brief on by prosecutors like Saul Green, prosecutors that had been in the Department of in the offices of the federal district courts in Michigan. It was a combination of 6 prosecutors that ordered a law firm to draft this brief for them. And it's astounding. It says basically that Michigan defendants in general, the brief is saying Michigan defendants across the state have been harmed by this misunderstanding of 770.1. I know frequently courts will rule 770.1 was overturned. It can't be overturned by a court rule. It cannot. And it's never been overturned, the statute. And they argue vociferously in the case, and it'll come to me before the end of the hearing, the name of the case. In fact, well, I don't know if my paralegal is here right now, but it'll come to me. I just tend to blank out. I'm getting a little older sometimes. So it's I can send copies of the brief because the brief is just stunning in what it says. It basically says that attorneys in the courts are used to basically pettifogging with words. That's the term it uses in the interests of supposedly of justice. But that this does not mean that an innocent person should be convicted under any circumstances. And they lay it out. So I can send you that brief after I remember the name. Hopefully I'll remember before the end of the night.
Here's a question anyone could take. Is there a way to find out disciplinary actions of officers in Wayne County?
Okay. Well, right now, Wayne County, the city of Detroit, the Wayne County, I'm trying to remember if it's the Wayne County Corporation Council. No, it's the City of Detroit Corporation Council that said it in a well-publicized interview with Ross Jones. This thing keeps popping up here. It'll go away. Ross Jones, that they've decided that they're not going back more than 4 years on uncovering police records, disciplinary records. And that's an outrage. The integrity unit says they don't go back any more than 10 years. So that's a bar right there. Now, back in the day, when I was working with the Coalition Against Police Brutality, I don't know if people remember the case of Officer Eugene Brown that killed 3 different men in the late 90s under very suspicious circumstances. And Benny Napoleon then had ordered that they put together a unit. Walter Shoulders was the head of the unit to investigate what was happening with him. They came back with a report that recommended he be charged. They ditched that. They covered it up. They ditched that report. When I was working for the Michigan Citizen, we went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court about that because I FOIA'd that report and was denied. And it went to the Michigan Supreme Court and we won. The attorney at the time was Jerome Goldberg, and myself and the editor of the Michigan Citizen, Teresa Kelly, were all involved in the court hearing. And they ruled that, yes, that report should be released about what happened, what the recommendations for discipline were. It was released with some redactions. There was a big stink about it back then because Eugene Brown I broke the story about him in the Michigan Citizen. I don't know if people remember Arnetta Grable from the Coalition Against Police Brutality. She was the mother of one of the victims that he killed. And they raised holy hell for 10 years about him before, she won in court, civil court. She won a civil verdict against Eugene Brown of $4 million, and later it got up to something like $6 million because the city kept appealing and appealing.
Attorney Robinson wrote about Eugene Brown in his book.
He was the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's the case that I covered for the Michigan Citizen, and he was the attorney for Arnetta Grable.
Okay.
Yeah,
here's another question. This one's a little long, so I'm going to let you guys read it. Attorney Mack, too. Here it is. What about... Do you guys have an answer for that one?
Still reading.
Oh, okay.
That's not my area of expertise.
You got it, Attorney Matt?
Yeah, well, frankly, I mean, there are too many compound issues in it. I can't even respond, honestly. It's too many compound issues. I guess if the author is listening, if they could just write a simple question, or maybe a 2-sentence question, I can analyze that. But it's too many compound issues in that statement, J-Love.
Okay. I see Yolanda Nelson's on here. She said her brother has been waiting for the CIU for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her telling me they sent her something to say no news is good news. Who does that when your loved one been in prison 30 years? Right?
No, and I would investigate it. If I were them, I would go and look in his court file. Go down there. You can do that. Any person can do that. You don't have to be an attorney or a reporter. Any member of the public has access to those court files. And it's just that all the time the court was shut down when people couldn't even go in the court clerk's office. They weren't facilitating that, which was actually a constitutional violation. But they should go down and request his court file and see what's in there. See what kind of procedure they use to stay his case. And it should be challenged if there was no consent on his part or on his attorney's part. Well, does he have an attorney? I don't think he does.
I don't know. Yolanda, if you're still on, does he have an attorney? Now, someone said basically the CIU is the gatekeeper for the prosecutor's office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing that they do, while they have that thing under investigation, like in Roosevelt Pettiford's case, they've had it with them since 2018. But the thing is that after he won his hearing at the Michigan Supreme Court in 2020, that the prosecutor's office can use anything that was given to the CIU that they feel is negative, that will go against the defendant at the evidentiary hearing. They'll be using all of that. They've had a chance to go and investigate. Oh, was he really innocent? That kind of thing. That's not the procedure in court. Right. That is not the procedure in court. You have court laws, court rules in court that tell you what you can and can't do in court. The CIU is specifically exempt from those court rules. You can't even appeal a decision of the CIU not to take your case.
Because the CIU, when you get that application, it asks real personal things. And now you're saying like this, your application, this is the prosecutor who wrongfully convicted you. And now you're giving them all your information that they may overlook or may not have overlooked. And so they can decide whether or not, sitting in the background, we can, they have all the information when you go to appeal or whatever. They can use your words against you. That's like throwing the right to remain silent out the window.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And this article cautions people about what they say when they apply to a CIU. In general, it's talking about CIUs across the country, to be very careful that you don't go into all sorts of other details about your case, such as what your lawyer did, what so-and-so said, he said, she said type of thing that would identify other people involved that the prosecutor may not even know about. Not to do that. You just deal with the slim, the bare bones of the case, the facts in terms of what you were sentenced for, etc. Don't put a bunch of other things out there if you're applying to the CIU, because they'll jump on that.
Yeah, so if you have a current case, then the current prosecutor, she might overlook your case and go pick a whole bunch of 20-year-old cases or 30-year-old cases where she wasn't in office. And so she can clear those all out. But the people who are waiting for some current cases, they might be working for a minute, because now that shines the light on that specific prosecutor's office. So they're not, I don't see them, and I could be wrong, but I don't see them, saying, hey, we was wrong, or, admitting it, on their own, because they wouldn't have did it in the first place.
Exactly.
Right. So
yeah, well, that's the thing I raised about some of the exonerations, actually, that the CIU did. Well, one of the headlines in an article on one of the exonerations was, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office sent him to jail 30 years ago, and now the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office got him exonerated. Now, I looked at some of those cases on the Register of Actions to see what was going on with the appeals. Every step of the way on the appeals, the prosecutor's office was denying. And, Attorney Mack, what happens with the Court of Appeals and all of them. They'll just give a little standard thing saying a couple paragraphs. We don't feel this has merit to be reviewed by this court, essentially. The
Supreme Court routinely does that on applications for leave to appeal. Okay. A paragraph, period. Okay.
And I've seen the appeals court do it.
But see, the problem is far too often, I'm going to say 99% of the time, when I see candidates for the Court of Appeals, you think they're running for sheriff. Okay. Because there is still systemic racism. There is still systemic classism in this state, and actually in this country, that will fight to maintain a status quo. And the reality of it is, the system would fall apart if every case that deserved to be appealed was reviewed and relief granted. It would fall apart. And so I think it's time for people to start confronting this for what it really, really is. The Court of Appeals, with the blessing of the Supreme Court, by the way, has carved out huge gaping holes in prosecutorial misconduct, in inadmissible evidence being admitted, in perjured testimony being admitted, in tainted evidence being admitted. It's called harmless error. Yes. It did not affect the ultimate outcome of the case. And I guess I've always wanted to ask the judges, who the hell are you to say, when you say, look, we have to look at a sterile record. We weren't the sitting judge, we weren't the jurors. We look at a sterile record that's just in front. In other words, a transcript. That's what they mean, a transcript. And that's all we can go on. We leave the credibility of witnesses to the jury and to the judge. So we are not going to look at anything other than that. Well, if you say that on one hand and say the admission of testimony that was more prejudicial than probative is harmless error, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're sterile and just looking at a transcript, then say from the transcript or what's not in that transcript, that was harmless error, because you weren't there. You don't know the impact that testimony or the absence of that testimony would have had in the case. So what I'm telling you, panel, is that the aspect of law and order the aspect of lock them up, the aspect of mud still plays real good. All right. And it's part of a systemic racist system in the nation.
Yes.
Fueled by the media, it's fueled by politicians, it's fueled by right-wing radio and television, that these are the other people. You know, put the hammer to these other people. They're not real Americans in the first place. Okay. So as long as you can have judges that run on that and criticize other judges when they overturn a conviction or exclude evidence as prejudicial as being soft on crime, the system will never stop, ladies and gentlemen. It'll never stop.
Attorney Mack and Diane, I just wanted to say, when it comes to harmless error, so just so our viewers can be clear, so harmless error means that it was an error that was involved that supposedly will not impact the outcome of the case. Is that correct?
That's true. That's
right.
true.
However, what we do see is that harmless error, actually those errors do impact the outcome. But what you're saying, and I'm trying to make sure that we're clear, is that if they're saying, oh, you know, he was a troublemaker anyway, in the mind of that judge or in the mind of that prosecutor, then overall they're saying, so it's not just a case per case, it's according to the perception of the prosecuting attorney. Am I correct?
Well, it isn't so much the perception of the prosecuting attorney, it's a perception of the judge. Okay?
Yeah.
Because remember, the judge is the one who decides what evidence is or is not admissible. Okay? And what jury instructions ought to be given, you know. And then another thing they use is, well, you know what? They had a cautionary jury instruction. In other words, you know, you've heard the old statement, you cannot unring a bell, which is true. Once you've heard a bell ring, that ringing is etched in your mind forever. So if you've got somebody blurts out, well, you know, yeah, he raped my little sister 5 years ago. Oh, objection. The jury is instructed to disregard that. How?
Right, you can't unhear it.
How? And so what I'm saying is, so when that case, if that person's convicted and they go up on appeal and they say, judge or court of appeals, there should have been a mistrial granted immediately. All right. There should have been a mistrial. There wasn't a mistrial. This case needs to be reversed because it was not just harmless error. Oh yeah, it was harmless error. The evidence against the defendant. Look, I've read a zillion of these opinions. The evidence against the defendant was overwhelming, you know, and no reasonable juror could have voted for acquittal had they not heard that. Like I said, it's a hole big enough to drive a truck through. A truck.
There was a case, Travis, the paralegal, the legal advisor for Boyce of Detroit, has been sitting in a case in the federal court with a friend of his that just, he's charged with drug trafficking and he's just got found guilty and he's facing 10 to 20 years in prison. But what happened with the jury was that when the jury convened to start deliberating, there was a woman on the jury, a white woman. Now, most of the jurors in federal court there are white, and there's only a few blacks on this jury. And there was a white woman on the jury that said all through the trial, what had happened was that they kept talking about this house on Helen Street that supposedly the drugs were found in. There was a couple other houses they said that the defendant also was involved with. They never had him actually with the drugs. Now she said, well, back in 10 years ago, my boyfriend, my fiance, died of an overdose from drugs that he got in a house on Helen. And she told this to the entire jury. Now it raised a huge stink. The judge had to interview all the jurors to see if she thought that they were affected by that. Now she decided there was a motion for a mistrial, but the judge decided that they could continue. They kicked that juror off the jury. but the jury had already heard all that. And so how are you going to unring the bell, like you said? And this is a mostly white jury talking about a house on Helen Street in a very black neighborhood of Detroit, black and poor. And, so this woman has a bone to pick. And there's, Travis was saying that he felt that it was likely the case she deliberately got on the jury. That she concealed that. She didn't say anything during voir dire about any previous experience like that. It wasn't until she got to the deliberations. So, and that's supposed to be harmless error.
Right.
You got all these suburban whites up there on the jury, and they're looking at, this house on Helen Street. He said they talked about the house on Helen Street hundreds of times during the trial.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Here's a question. The Wayne County CIU has been reviewing Vine's number 345000 conviction for years. When the crime he is in prison for, he was in jail at the time and could not have committed the crime. The CIU claims they cannot attain the booking records that far back. That's insane.
The situation with that, we ran into a situation with Travis had run into a situation, and his sister is a former deputy sheriff. And he found out after talking to his sister and other people in the sheriff's office that they are required by Constitution to maintain all the log records, the logs of people going into the jail. They are required to maintain those in perpetuity.
They should have to.
Just like all the interests. Well, I was going to say something else, but we can continue because that was, for them to say that is outrageous. I just don't see that that's the case.
Right. So Deidre asks, what good are they, the CIU, if they aren't going to consider these innocent people for relief? Now, we're not saying that, they're, well, I'll let you say it. Answer that, Diane.
Well, I have a question about that too. Now they did, and this was large. The CIU here was largely put in place as a result of, as a ploy for Kim Worthy to get reelected. And a number of the exonerees, the so-called exonerees that it has dealt with, something 30 some people, came out and endorsed her during the election. And that has totally slanted people's view on what they're doing. So I don't know if you can say now 30 people out of, how many people do we have in prison in Michigan?
34,000.
34,000. 30 people out of 34,000 people, where according to Scott Lewis, 30% of those people are likely innocent. What is that? What is it? I'm not saying those guys shouldn't be out, that they should get justice for what was done to them. I've covered a number of their cases, and I know most of them. But hey, if they're not going to act in that fashion, the CIU in, what is that? I can't think of it. Something slipped my mind again. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just saying buyer beware. It's like buyer beware, with this CIU, just beware of the information that you are putting on here because you're still fighting the prosecutor's office, no matter what.
Right. That's right. That's what it comes down to. And, the prosecutor prosecuted all these cases over the years to death. Kim Worthy's been in that office since 1984 as an assistant prosecutor. And so they're well aware of what's been done with these jailhouse snitches and everything else, but they still fought these cases all that time.
So it's the, it's not, it's a misnomer, there's no integrity. It's not true integrity. There's the transparency is not there. And there's so many secrets and so many years of hiding secrets and information, and later it comes out, and there's no relief. Like Deidre was saying, there is not a relief for the innocent people. But here's where we have to go to work in our communities. We have to continue to speak out. We have to continue to vote. Definitely support the bill so that we can get rid of immunity for these officers, and for, people need to be held accountable. In every other facet of work, people are held accountable, except for in these leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
And the prosecutor, Attorney Mack, is elected.
Yeah.
They're elected. And and guess what? They pick their crew.
Mm-hmm.
They pick their little crew to work with. So
Right.
if they're not working in the way that you feel like they're working or should be working, then that's an opportunity to get rid of them.
Yeah.
We tried it.
Yeah,
We tried it, but you have to really get out here and work it. I mean, Michigan Liberation put on a hard campaign last time she ran to get her out of there. But people have to go and vote. You have to, first of all, you got to tell these stories, right? You got to tell these stories to everybody you know. Don't just hold them to yourself. Don't just tell the stories.
Yeah.
Hey, because people don't know. You think people know? They don't know. A lot of people do not know that this is happening until it actually happens to them. So people are walking around oblivious. That's why we're here. Actually, that's the reason why we're here, because we want people to know. We put this platform out so people can understand what's going on. So you got to tell your stories, because you find power in that, right? And then you also have to get your people to vote. Get your people to vote.
Well, the last election, Victoria Burton Harris won 40% of the vote against Kim Worthy, which was unheard of prior to that.
Right.
And she came close. We campaigned. I know Michigan Liberation was campaigning for her. Voice of Detroit was campaigning for her. All sorts of people. She's one of the progressive prosecutors across the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there would have been a harder push outside of Detroit, she would have won that election.
Yeah.
There would have been a harder push to Taylor, Livonia, Westland, but see, in all of those areas, she has been handpicked to keep folk that look like us in line, keep us in control. So that's why she wins in these outskirt areas, because she's, classified as one that'll walk that line and do what the justice system was really meant to do, which was to oppress people. But I want to say this: we come here for a few different reasons, but one thing that we want you to leave with is understanding you have some power. You are not powerless. Jay just took the words out of my mouth. I couldn't wait. And I said, "Oh, Jay, say what I was going to say." But that's it. You have the power of your vote and the power of your voice. And what happens is that most times we'll do one without the other. But doing one without the other is like getting in the car, trying to start a car up and got no gas. You got to have gas in the car to go. You have to use your voice. You have to follow up with your vote. And then you have to follow with a measure of accountability for the folks that you vote for. As Survivors Speak, we've been doing this since 2021. Operation Accountability. Is it this because we like to go around and call out elected officials? No, I'd rather not. However, if you have people that are in those seats that are not meeting the needs of the people, somebody has to sound the alarm. So we the town criers. That's how I look at us here. We the town criers. We the watcher on the wall. We said, "It's a fire over here. It's a fire," and then we all come and put it out. But I'm waiting on that part for us all to come and put it out. because we've been crying a mighty long time. But we need all hands on deck to flip these scales of injustice and do the right thing by our people. It's on us. We can't let it be on them. We see what it's been on them, and we see where it's gotten us. So it's time for us to take control now.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah. Because, we see people being exonerated, right? And 1 and 2 and 3, and then in between we see nothing, and it gives us hope. Like, yeah, they're moving and moving. But like you said, Diane, there's like 35,000 people in the Michigan Department of Corrections. So if you look at 40 compared to 30,000, that's nothing. So the power is with the people. We can demand more, we can demand better, or we can let you go.
right.
We can let you go. We can. Reverend Tia talks about the report card all the time. We have to get our own personal report card, and then and put their name up there. Like, if
They don't like
do
that either. They don't like that. We came out with our operation accountability, and if they didn't answer us, we put a big E up there. Oh man, they were calling me. Just say, how dare you? How dare you put that E on my name? E means that you are inaccessible. Why you ain't call me? I'm not finna pick up the phone and call your cell phone. I'm gonna try to reach you like the common citizen would reach you. You are inaccessible. And if you are inaccessible, then you get a bad grade. Sorry. You don't want a bad grade, then don't be inaccessible.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Facts. So Diane, I want to thank you for coming. You know that you always welcome to sit on this panel with us at any
I've
time.
enjoyed it the couple times I've been on there. I'll be back.
Yes,
I
whenever you
myself
want
doing a
to.
real service.
Yes.
A real service to the community. Right now, I'm trying to hunt down that case I was talking about on my other panel on my computer here, but I don't know why I've just blocked that out. But anyway, because we talk about it all the time, but you know how that goes.
Yeah. As soon as we get off, you're gonna be like, ah. But yes, whenever you want to come on, because we need to really talk about these. We're talking about innocent people. When my son went to prison for something he did not do, I could not stop talking about it. I could not stop looking for people. I did not stop emailing and calling people and trying to get people involved in this case. If I didn't, he probably would have died in there, because they was giving him Tums for something he needed an infusion for. So I'm telling you that you have to fight for what that you believe in with everything you got. Don't be, we're not here to, make you feel gloom and doom. We're just giving you the reality and the facts, and that you need to do your due diligence before you send out all this information, because people are not trying to look like what they say, soft on crime. They want to always be hard on crime, even when the person is innocent. Yeah.
You know what was very important, Jay? I'm so glad we come on here. When you know that, as you all were talking about the numbers, then we've only had 1/1000th of people exonerated or who have come out. Just 1/1000th, and not really exonerated. I guess exonerated since 1989. Michigan has had supposedly 71. And we had how many within the last year? 2 years? What, 24?
Yeah, so
you're talking about exonerees?
Yeah.
I think 32 something.
We had a whole lot before the 2020 elections. We had a whole lot of exoneration.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, she doesn't have to worry right now. They haven't exonerated anybody in the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what? The Michigan is number 2. So there's places where people ain't even getting exonerated, you know?
And I think it's just a conflict of interest if you have the prosecuting attorney over the integrity unit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't
In your
see,
office.
I don't see why that's even like that. I don't see why citizens aren't a part of it and leading that.
That's a good point. I think Barry Scheck, that was the founder of the Innocence Project in New York, has written an article about that, questioning whether CIU should be under that jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost the same. That's just like, the police, internal affairs is in the police, they write you over the police, but they are the police in the police
Right.
office.
Yeah. And the guy that used to be head of internal affairs at the police department is now sitting in prison because he was getting bribes from the towing companies.
Right. He was over the integrity of the police.
Right.
And he was taking bribes.
Mm-hmm.
So
we got work to do.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, Attorney Mack, I do have a flyer for you before we go that you asked me to put up if you want to speak on it. And then I have Trische.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, once again, this is a battle in the war, and all of us can't do everything, but all of us can do something. So maybe if somebody sees this, be able to attend or be encouraged by it, then that's what we need to do. Because, we got a bunch of different groups out here, so it's not like nobody's fighting. We're fighting. These people here are fighting. So I just would encourage folks, because I heard about this, and to try to educate the legislature. But J Love, along this same line, I'm going to encourage you all, keep pressure on your legislators. It costs about 65 cents to buy a stamp or something like that these days, or email, because I'm telling you, now is the time, folks. I'm telling you right now, I'm very concerned the next election cycle that the Democrats are going to be able to keep the House and the Senate, because I see these like Tim Skubic, the Lansing Journal or the Lansing Week in Review or something like that, and I'm saying these Republicans are gearing up for a strong comeback, just kind of like that when Barack Obama was elected president. They had all those rise and hate crimes and all that kind of stuff. I'm not accusing Republicans of being like that, but I'm saying they're like, we've got to undo some of this. And that margin is so slim. And frankly, Democrats have tended to go to sleep. Okay, we go to sleep. We go on and say, well, we got this, and go back to whatever we're doing. And a lot of the Republicans, I got to give them credit. They are a single-minded force. And the only way we overcome that is with a vote. You're not going to change them people that are Trump people. The only thing you can do is outvote them. That's all you can do is outvote them. Okay. So I guess, I would encourage, J Love, thank you for putting that up there, but keep work on the legislature. And then when it's my turn, I just want to make a final comment, J Love.
All right. And Attorney Matt Deidre says she's coming to get the hookup.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Well then, hey, she must be contacting you from my virtual underground garage on Mack Street. And
all right, and Trische, let me get yours up.
Yes. So each and every third Saturday of the month, we are together for our wrongful conviction support group. I think it's very important that we come together heart to heart, so that we can understand that, we're all in this together and we can all hold each other up. So that is on every third Saturday. The next would be May the 20th at 10 a.m. And then at 1 p.m., we reassemble or come back together for the wrongful conviction task force, where we are promoting policies that will impact change. And I will be calling attorney Hugo Mack to get the hookup so he can come into this next meeting with us and prayerfully walk us through exactly what this bill means. And then we're going to make some decisions about whether we support that bill or whether we try to right our own. So please meet us. Again, that is May the 20th at 10 a.m. for the support group and 1 p.m. for the task force. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll send them to you. I'll send the bills to you.
Okay. And then also Diane, she's here.
I'm right now trying to
we have it every week.
Okay.
Diane, go ahead.
I'm trying to contact my paralegal right now to see if I can get the name of that case. Oh, how much longer do we have here? Because he talks about it all the time.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys, Miss Diane, who has brought us all this knowledge, please support her newspaper, our newspaper, The Voice of Detroit. Donate to go to www.voiceofdetroit.net to support. And also, I want to say, save the date for the Love Gathering. It's coming up, and by probably next Friday, we will have more details. We'll have the location for you guys, where it's going to be at. And it's a beautiful location. And we'll have more details about the Love Gathering. So put this on your calendar. The Love Gathering, a day of love, fun, food, self-care, and also celebration of life. It'll be 1 year after Gerard's transition. And so we want to honor him and honor all of those that have been dealing with this injustice, and just take a day off from all of this. And also, we are supporting the Final Push Project for Clemency for Susan Brown. Please go to this link, Clemency for Susan Brown, to find out more about Susan. This is the QR code to get the information to support her clemency. Now I'm going to go back to you. Did you get it, Diane?
Still trying.
Okay.
He's not answering his phone right now.
But also, while we're talking.
Wait a minute. One sec. Here he is.
Okay.
Travis, what's the name of the case? I'm driving. Well, all I need is the name of the case, the 770.1 with the brief, the Michigan Supreme Court. People versus Lorinda Swain. That's right. People versus Lorinda Swain. Okay, that's good. That's enough. Okay, People versus Lorinda Swain, SWAIN. I usually have it on the tip of my tongue, but that's the case where the defense filed a brief from the prosecution, from prosecutors that said, on behalf of all defendants in the state of Michigan. So,
oh wow,
there's links to that in some of my stories. So, saying that 770.1 should be the overriding way that people get justice through the justice process. That the 6.500, those rules were enacted as a way to cut down on prisoners filing cases, challenging their convictions and saying they're innocent, because there's so many rules involved. You got to go under Cress, newly discovered evidence, all of that. It doesn't worry about newly discovered evidence. They just, in the case of Temujin Kensu, the state, which was an outrageous case where he was way up in the Upper Peninsula when this murder happened down in Port Huron. And all these years, he hasn't gotten any relief. And the Conviction and Integrity Unit in Dana Nessel's office recruited Valerie Newman from the Wayne County CIU to review it. And she denied it because it wasn't newly discovered evidence. even though
Wow.
they say they don't adhere to court rules. So
Wow.
anyway, Lorinda Swain, that's the name of it.
Trische, what you want to leave us with?
I just want to leave us with I need all hands on deck in Westland on Monday at 6 p.m. There have been a lot of violations, a lot of victims at the hands of this policing agency. If you've been one of those victims, or I'll say survivors, please show up, raise your voice. We will have some designated speakers, but we'll also have time for open mic before we go in at 7 to the city council meeting and have public comment there. But we need all hands on deck. Again, that is in Westland at City Hall over on Warren Avenue. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No.
Attorney Mack, go ahead.
Okay, Trische, could you send me those bills, or at least put me to a link where I can look at them?
Yep, I'll send them to you right now.
Okay, because what I want to do is I want to do an analysis of that with some other legislation I'm looking at. So
Okay.
we may end up, sister, you spot on. We may end up having to write our own bill, Trische. No, I'm serious. We may have to. So, well, let me say this first of all. In terms of the exonerees, let me explain something. As a person who's been behind that wall, look, I understand wanting to get out. I understand being elated, but to be really candid about it, and I'm sorry if I'm offending people, when you are quote unquote released, but it is without prejudice, I got news for you. You're like a little puppy on a really long leash. Okay? I'm sorry. And I'm not dehumanizing anybody to the point of being an animal. Don't get me wrong. But you're on a really long leash. And the problem with a little puppy on a leash, it can be so long, it actually thinks it's free. It lives. And J Love, when they send a hate mail, I'm gonna forward it all to you. It actually thinks it's free. Okay. And it's not. And so, brothers, when y'all and sisters, y'all, you happy about being free, I get that. But please quit saying exonerees, because you're really not. And I was on a panel a few weeks ago with some people say, well, we're the exonerees group and we're going around the country talking about exonerees. I didn't say anything out of respect, but you haven't been exonerated. Look, because the state chooses not to charge you again, that's not an exoneration, folks. That's not an exoneration. It means the state feels we do not have enough evidence to convict you. That's all that means. Okay. So when you have a man or woman where, for example, you remember the old show, The Fugitive, with Richard Kimball? Remember that? Richard Kimball, the one-armed man, remember all that? And Harrison Ford made a movie about that. Okay. Now that man is an exoneree. Okay. You understand? That man is an exoneree because they know who did it. So I say that with all due respect to my brothers out there. And then the other thing is, I want to say this. All black, brown, young whites, poor whites listening. Being innocent is not enough. The system is designed from your innocence. We are teaching our kids and our people, do the extra mile. Just don't be there. Well, I got a right to be out at 3 o'clock if I want to. I'm of age. Don't do it. Don't do it, because there's nothing but death out there for you. And standing on your constitutional rights won't mean a damn thing when you go to court, and especially when you go to prison. Okay? They have prison libraries in every institution. In every institution, all right? And every institution I was in, I worked in one prison library or another. The books become meaningless when they say, Mack, you out of place. Mack, you insubordinate. Mack, you being disruptive. Mack, you being insolent. Them books ain't doing me no good because I'm in that situation. So let's work with our people to try to avoid it. Try to avoid it and respect and love ourselves more than other people respect and love themselves. I love you.
Okay.
Diane, do you have something before I go to you, Reverend Tia?
Well, this has been a wonderful program. I just want to give my thanks to you, J Love, and the other panel members for the efforts that you're undertaking, because you're reaching out to the people. to organize, and that's what's needed. I did that for many, many years. Basically, right now, I write my newspaper. I'll be 75 this year, but I'm still in the struggle. I'm still in the struggle, so I never left it.
Thank you for all you do, Diane.
Oh, you're most welcome.
I'm always on you, always checking you out, seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing you as soon as I see it. I'm getting in contact with you.
Okay.
All right,
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Diane.
No, I was going to say, I'll probably, once I publish the story on Nicholas Hudson, we're probably going to want to come on the show with his family members. Okay.
Yes. Let me know. I'm ready.
Okay.
Reverend Tia, close us out.
Oh, you know what? I'm so grateful to be here. And I am really, my closeout is to support everything that we've been talking about. Trische, her nickname for me is the Barracuda. When you got to get it done, she's going to get it done. She will not stop. But we need the energy. We need the energy. Look, I'll take Trische with me anywhere. Look, because when things need to get done, she's going to get it done. Mm-hmm. I don't care if I've seen her in action at a hospital, okay, to fight for the rights for somebody, one of our colleagues in the hospital, to make sure she was properly taken care of. Mm-hmm. And so when I know that she says, be here at this time, it's important. Mm-hmm. And we come on here to educate, to make sure you feel empowered, but also so that you realize there are solutions, and the solution is you. You mm-hmm. are the solution. And so we are solution oriented, and we are here at this dispensation for a purpose. Our purpose is now, and your purpose is now. Anybody who is listening to this broadcast, you are in purpose while you are listening, and it's time for us. I don't know why people are trying to call me right now. It's time for us to go to action.
The haters.
Yes. Yes. It's time to go to action. Our time is now. So, Jay, I love you. I love each and every one of you. Diane, I thank you for the work that you do, that you've been doing. We support you. And Attorney Mack, you know, you got people coming. I love you guys.
Love you.
Yes. Yes. And thank you. I know this was a long night for some of you guys, but this was really a really important conversation. So I thank you guys for hanging on with us. And we'll see you next week. Oh, yeah. And we're going to Ohio next Saturday to support Lisa Riley and her rally that she has going on in Canton, Ohio. So if you guys want to know about that, more so about that, connect with Lisa Riley, or I will post something on my page. But yeah, so thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Turning a moment into a movement.
All right.